The great chamber of the Galactic Council was silent. Its tall glass walls looked out into the endless void of space, where distant stars flickered like watchful eyes. Alien leaders sat around the long, curved table, each carrying the weight of fear. Their worlds were burning, their fleets broken, their armies scattered. The war had lasted too long, and the enemy that had once been easy to dismiss had now become something they could no longer control. That enemy was humanity. For years, the galaxy had thought of humans as weak, chaotic, and reckless. They were seen as a young race that had risen too quickly, spreading across stars they did not deserve. Many alien rulers laughed at them, calling Earth a small and fragile world. They had mocked humanity's passion, their stubborn will, their endless fighting spirit. But the laughter had ended when the first human war fleets arrived. Now, fear filled every corner of the chamber. The Council had called for this emergency meeting after another crushing defeat. Entire battle groups had been erased. Fortress worlds that were thought impossible to breach had fallen one after another. And the humans, those strange, relentless creatures, were not slowing down. They were moving faster, striking harder, pushing the galaxy to the edge of collapse. At the center of the chamber, the High Speaker of the Council rose. His voice trembled as it echoed through the room. "We must end this," he said. "If humanity continues, none of us will survive. We must beg for peace. We must beg them to stop." The words, "beg for peace," were heavy, and they tasted bitter to the council members. Many species in the chamber had never begged for anything. Their civilizations were thousands of years old. They had built empires when humanity was still learning fire. Yet now they were ready to kneel, for they had seen what humans could do when they refused to stop fighting. One by one, the leaders spoke. Some argued for mercy, some argued for surrender. Others simply wept for their dying worlds. The chamber was filled with desperate voices. All of them pointed to the same hope. Perhaps if they offered peace, the humans would accept it, but the humans were not yet in the chamber. Their seat was empty. The council waited, the silence growing heavier with every second. Then the doors opened. A tall figure walked in, his boots striking the floor with slow, steady steps. The human envoy. His face was stern, his eyes hard, his uniform sharp and dark. He did not look like a man coming to accept peace. He looked like a man bringing judgment. Every eye turned toward him. The aliens whispered nervously. Some leaned back in their chairs, as if the human's very presence was dangerous. The envoy placed his hands on the table and slowly sat down. He said nothing. The silence stretched. Finally, the High Speaker tried to speak again. His voice shook. "Human envoy, we are prepared to offer terms. We ask you in the name of all life in this galaxy to bring your fleets to a halt. We offer peace. We beg for peace." The human did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the speaker, but there was no warmth in them. No sign of kindness, no sign of mercy. He simply listened, as if weighing the entire galaxy in his thoughts. One alien leader slammed his hand on the table. "Do you not hear us? We surrender. We will give you worlds. We will give you resources. We will give you anything. Only stop this war before there is nothing left." Still, the human envoy was silent. The room grew colder, as if the very stars beyond the glass had dimmed. The council members shifted uncomfortably. They expected humans to be eager for peace. They expected them to celebrate their victory, to finally lay down their arms. But the envoy's silence was worse than rejection. It was a warning. One young alien delegate whispered what everyone else was too afraid to say. "They are not here to make peace." Those words spread through the chamber like fire. The aliens looked at the human again, and for the first time they understood the truth. The humans had not come to this chamber to end the war. They had come to show the Council that the galaxy's time of control was over. A deep unease settled in the room. The peace that the Council had begged for was slipping away before it even began. The human envoy's eyes remained cold and unbroken, as if carrying the weight of every world that had once been betrayed. Every colony that had been abandoned, every life that had been taken when humanity was weak. The Council realized they were not speaking to a desperate race. They were speaking to a race that had risen from ashes, a race that had been tested by fire and had become harder than steel. And as the silence stretched on, fear grew in every alien heart, for they understood at last that humanity might refuse their offer, and if they did, nothing in the galaxy could stop what was coming next. The chamber of the Galactic Council remained heavy with silence. The human envoy sat unmoving, his face a mask of stone. His silence was more terrifying than any shouted threat. The aliens shifted in their seats, feeling the weight of every second. They had prepared long speeches, careful promises, and long lists of what they were ready to give. But now, facing the envoy, their words felt weak and small. The High Speaker forced himself to stand again. His long robes shimmered under the dim lights as he raised his trembling hands. "We understand what has been done to you," he said. "We know the galaxy wronged humanity. But this war cannot go on. Too many have died. Too many worlds are burning. If it continues, there will be no galaxy left to save." His words echoed through the chamber, but they sounded like pleading. The council members looked to the envoy for a response, but the human gave none. His silence pressed harder. One of the elder races spoke next. She was tall, with skin that glowed faintly, like crystal under fire. Her species had ruled for thousands of years, and yet her voice shook. "We will open our trade routes to you. We will give you access to every system under our control. Humanity will be welcomed as equals. Let this war end, and you will not be denied your rightful place among us." She bowed her head, something her people had never done before. To bow was to admit weakness. To bow was to admit fear. Another voice rose, harsh and broken. It came from a smaller, insect-like alien whose homeworld had been shattered only months ago. His mandibles clicked as he spoke, desperate. "My kind has nothing left. Our colonies are gone. Our fleets are dust. I beg you, human envoy, do not destroy what little remains of us. We will pay whatever price you demand. Spare us, and we will never resist you again." The chamber filled with voices, one after another. Each alien leader took their turn, laying their pride aside, begging for survival. They spoke of ruined cities, starving children, shattered legacies. They offered wealth, technology, even entire planets. Anything to make humanity stop. But through it all, the envoy sat still. His face gave nothing away. His eyes moved from speaker to speaker, yet he did not nod, did not speak, did not change. Finally, one of the younger members of the council stood. His voice was angry, sharp with pride, though it shook beneath the surface. "Do you not see what we are offering you?" he demanded. "You have already won this war. We are on our knees. Take peace now, and you will be remembered as saviors. Reject it, and you will be remembered as destroyers. Which legacy do you want?" The words struck the chamber like thunder, but still the human envoy gave no reply. He remained quiet, as if the words of empires meant nothing. The High Speaker tried again. His voice was softer now, almost a whisper. "We do not ask for ourselves. We ask for the billions who will die if you refuse. They are innocent. They do not deserve to be swept away by war. Please, end this now." For the first time, the envoy's eyes shifted. He looked at the speaker, and for a heartbeat, the council felt a spark of hope. Perhaps he would agree. Perhaps the humans would finally stop. But when the envoy finally leaned forward, the hope began to die. His voice was low, cold, and steady. "You ask us for peace now. But where was your peace when our colonies were under attack? Where was your peace when our children were left to starve on burning worlds? Where was your mercy when the council turned its back on us?" The chamber froze. Not a single alien dared to answer. The envoy's voice grew sharper, though still calm. "You speak of the billions who may die. We remember the billions who already did. And we remember who looked away." The silence that followed was unbearable. The council members could not meet the envoy's eyes. They lowered their heads in shame, in guilt, in fear. For the first time, they began to realize the truth. Humanity did not see peace as mercy. Humanity saw it as weakness, and perhaps it was already too late. The envoy leaned back in his chair, his expression unbroken. "We have not come here to sign your peace," he said. We came here so you would understand why there will be none. The chamber erupted in cries of shock and fear. Some leaders shouted in anger, others in despair. The High Speaker nearly collapsed where he stood. The council had begged. They had offered everything, but humanity had refused. And outside the chamber, beyond the glass walls, the first human dreadnoughts began to appear, their dark silhouettes blotting out the stars. The chamber had fallen into chaos. Voices overlapped, shouts of anger mixed with desperate cries for survival. Some aliens demanded that humanity be punished for its arrogance. Others whispered in fear that perhaps humanity could no longer be stopped. Through it all, the human envoy remained calm. He sat like a shadow carved from stone, his eyes steady, his hands folded on the table. Slowly the noise died down. The council members turned their eyes back toward him one by one, as though pulled by an unseen force. The envoy had not raised his voice, had not moved a muscle, yet the room bent around his silence. Finally he spoke. "You beg for peace now," he said, his voice low but sharp. "But where was this peace when humanity asked for your help?" The words cut through the chamber like a blade. The council members froze. They remembered. The envoy leaned forward. His eyes locked on the High Speaker. "We cried out when our colonies were invaded. We begged for aid when our fleets were broken. And what did this council do? You turned your faces away. You called us reckless. You called us weak. You called us unworthy of saving." A heavy silence followed. None of the alien leaders dared to answer. You sat in these chambers and debated while our children starved on shattered worlds. You argued about treaties while our people were slaughtered. We buried our dead alone. We bled alone. And now that the tide has turned, you ask us for peace. The envoy's tone did not rise. He did not need to shout. His words carried more weight than thunder. One of the alien leaders finally tried to respond. His voice was trembling. "You cannot blame all of us for the actions of a few. We did not know how strong you would become." The envoy's expression hardened. "Exactly. You did not know, because you never cared to look. To you, Earth was just another young world, easy to dismiss, easy to ignore. But you should have remembered what happens when you corner humanity. We endure, we grow, and when we rise, we do not rise quietly." The aliens shifted nervously in their seats. The envoy continued, "You offer us peace now, but what you truly offer is fear. You fear our fleets. You fear our weapons. You fear the will of a race that does not know how to surrender. Do you think we do not see that?" The High Speaker tried to speak, but the envoy's voice rolled over him like a storm. "You call this a war. To us, it is justice. For every child who died alone on a frozen colony. For every ship left to burn while the council watched. For every insult you threw at our name. This war is not finished. Not yet." A cold wave of dread swept through the chamber. The alien leaders felt it in their bones. Humanity had not come to this chamber to bargain. They had come to announce their decision. The envoy's eyes scanned the room, settling on each leader in turn. "Do you know what we have learned from this war?" he asked. "We learned that mercy is a weakness you never showed us. We learned that respect is not given, it is taken. And we learned that peace is not something you beg for at the last moment. Peace is something built with trust. You never gave us that trust." His words carried the weight of centuries, though humanity's time among the stars was short. It was the kind of weight born not of age, but of struggle. Finally, the envoy leaned back in his chair, his voice soft but final. "We will not sign your peace. We will not end this war because you ask us to. We will end it when the galaxy learns what humanity truly is." The chamber erupted again, this time in panic. Some leaders shouted warnings of annihilation. Others begged once more, their voices desperate. A few simply sat in silence, realizing there was no path left, but the envoy did not move. His message had been delivered, and outside, more human ships folded into orbit, their shadows spreading across the stars. The council had begged for peace. Humanity had refused, and now the galaxy stood at the edge of something far darker than war. The council chamber was broken by noise. The alien leaders spoke over one another, their voices cracking with fear. Some shouted for reason, some for surrender, others for action, but all of them carried the same note of panic. The human envoy rose slowly from his seat. He did not raise his hands to silence them. He did not command order, but as he stood, the voices faltered. The weight of his presence pulled the chamber back into silence. He looked across the table, his gaze sweeping over faces old and proud, faces that had once laughed at Earth. Now they could not meet his eyes. "This meeting is over," he said. His voice was calm, flat, final. "Humanity has no more words for you." With that, he turned. His boots struck the floor in steady steps as he walked toward the great doors. Each sound echoed in the hollow chamber like the toll of a bell. No one stopped him. No one dared. When the doors closed behind him, a cold realization spread through the council. The humans had walked away from peace, and nothing would bring them back. The High Speaker collapsed into his seat, his long hands trembling. "We have made a mistake," he whispered. The words carried across the chamber, and every delegate felt their truth. The mistake was not in calling for peace. It was in waiting too long to ask for it. Outside the council station, the truth was even clearer. Through the massive glass walls, ships were arriving, human ships. One after another, they folded in from the black, filling the void with steel. At first, it was a few dreadnoughts, their hulls gleaming like knives in the starlight. Then came carriers, destroyers, escort fleets, then more. They stretched into the distance until the stars themselves seemed hidden behind their shapes. Whispers spread through the chamber as the leaders stared at the sight. This is not a fleet," one alien muttered. "This is an empire." They had thought humanity was exhausted by war. They had believed Earth's forces must be near their breaking point. But what they saw outside told a different story. Humanity had grown stronger, faster, deadlier than any of them could have guessed. These were not fleets clinging to survival. These were fleets built to dominate. An elder delegate with silvered skin spoke in horror. "They were fighting us with only part of their strength." The words struck the council like a blade. If this was true, if humanity had not even used its full power, then the galaxy was already lost. The High Speaker's voice shook as he tried to rally the chamber. "We must find another way. There must still be time." But his words were weak. The council knew what he could not admit. Time was already gone. On the station's outer decks, alien civilians gathered at the windows. They too saw the endless human ships forming ranks in the void. Some wept, others prayed, a few simply stared in silence. They understood better than the rulers inside the chamber. The humans had not come for promises. They had come to show the galaxy that mercy was finished. Far above the council station, the lead dreadnought turned. Its massive guns shifted slightly, not firing, but reminding all who looked upon it what they were capable of. Its hull bore markings of battles past, names of human colonies avenged, scars of wars survived. It was more than a warship. It was a warning written in steel. In the chamber, one desperate leader broke the silence. "We must call on the ancient alliances. We must gather what fleets remain. If we do not, humanity will crush us one by one." But another answered with despair. "Do you not see? Humanity has already crushed us. Even united, our strength is less than theirs. They have no reason to fear us now." The arguments grew, but they were hollow. Each leader knew the truth. There was no balance left in the galaxy. The power had shifted, and it now belonged to Earth. Meanwhile, the human envoy stood aboard his shuttle, leaving the council station behind. He looked out at the vast armada forming in the dark. A faint reflection of the stars glimmered on the glass, but his eyes were fixed on the ships of his people. He knew the council was afraid. That was good. Fear was the first step toward respect. He did not smile. There was nothing joyful about what was coming. Humanity had been forced into this war, but they had been changed by it. They were no longer the young, fragile race the council once mocked. They had become something else, something harder, something the galaxy could not control. Back inside the chamber, the High Speaker finally raised his voice again. It was thin, strained, nearly broken. "We thought we could tame them. We thought they would be like us, but they are not like us. They never were. The words hung in the air, heavy with truth. The Council realized that the war was no longer about territory, no longer about politics or resources. It had become something deeper, something no treaty could end. The turning point had come. Humanity had refused peace. Humanity had revealed its strength. And now the galaxy understood the cost of their mistake. Outside, the human fleet spread wider, blotting out the stars. The universe seemed smaller in their shadow, and in that shadow every alien heart knew the galaxy would never be the same again. The council chamber had fallen into despair. The alien leaders sat in silence, their proud voices now reduced to whispers. Outside the glass walls, the human fleet continued to grow. More ships folded into orbit every minute. Dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers, frigates, each one a shadow blotting out the stars. It was not an army. It was a storm. The High Speaker looked at his fellow leaders. His face, once calm with authority, was pale and broken. "We begged," he whispered. "We gave them everything we could. And still they walked away." An elder delegate raised her trembling voice. "Perhaps they only mean to frighten us. Perhaps they will not strike." But even as she spoke, she did not believe her own words. None of them did. The envoy's silence, his cold refusal, had told them everything. Humanity had no need for empty threats. Humanity spoke through action. Far above, the lead human dreadnought moved into position. Its engines glowed like suns, and its guns tracked slowly, not firing, but watching. The galaxy had once thought these ships were legends, whispered rumors of Earth's rising power. Now they saw the truth with their own eyes, and it was far worse than rumor. Inside the council chamber, a messenger rushed in. His voice shook as he addressed the assembly. "The humans have sent a message. It is addressed to all of you." The council leaned forward. Even in their fear, hope flickered. Perhaps this was a chance. Perhaps there was still one last path to peace. The message was short. It appeared as words across the chamber's central display. "We will not accept your peace. We will not forget your betrayal. We will not forgive. The galaxy will learn what humanity is." Gasps spread through the chamber. Some delegates cried out in fear. Others lowered their heads in shame. The message was not long, but it carried more weight than any treaty. It was not an invitation. It was a sentence. The High Speaker read the words again, his lips trembling. They mean to judge us all." The envoy himself did not return to the chamber. He did not need to. His words had already taken root in every mind. Humanity's answer was final. Outside, the human fleet began to shift. Formations locked into place. Battle groups moved like one living creature, precise and unstoppable. It was the movement of a force that had trained not for defense, but for domination. In the chamber, one desperate leader shouted, "We must fight! We must strike them before they strike us." But the reply came from another, his voice hollow. "Fight them? With what? Our fleets are scattered. Our worlds are broken. We have nothing left that can stand against what waits outside those windows." The truth sank deeper. The galaxy had already lost. This was not a battle waiting to begin. This was the aftermath of a war humanity had already won. The High Speaker tried to rise, but his legs trembled. He gripped the edge of the table, his voice breaking as he spoke. "We thought ourselves eternal. We thought the Council would rule forever. But in our pride, we forgot the one truth we should have remembered." The chamber leaned forward. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Never turn your back on humanity." His words hung in the air, cold and final. The delegates felt them in their bones. They knew they would be remembered not as leaders of the stars, but as the fools who underestimated Earth. Above them, the human fleet grew brighter. Engines lit the void, casting long shadows across the council station. Civilians watching from the outer decks fell silent. Children clung to their parents. Old ones bowed their heads. Some whispered prayers, though none knew who might be listening. The human dreadnought's comms activated once more. A single voice, the envoy's, echoed across every channel. His words were calm, steady, and merciless. "We asked for respect. You gave us scorn. We asked for aid. You gave us silence. We asked for trust. You gave us betrayal. Now we ask for nothing. We will take what we are owed." The chamber shook with the sound. Not from weapons, not from fire, but from the truth carried in his voice. The galaxy had lived in arrogance, believing itself unshakable. Now, with a few words, humanity had shattered that illusion. The council members sat frozen, unable to speak. They could only listen as the envoy delivered the final line, "Remember this moment. For when history is written, it will not be the story of your council. It will be the story of humanity." The transmission ended. The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. The council leaders sat in that silence, knowing their time was ending. Outside, the human fleet began to move forward. The stars disappeared behind the wall of steel. The shadow of Earth stretched across the galaxy, and in that shadow, the galaxy understood its fate. Humanity had refused peace. Humanity had chosen its own path, and nothing could stop what was coming next.